When I first moved into the neighborhood on the quiet edge of Willow Creek, I never imagined that my life would take the kind of turn it did. Back then, everything felt like a dream: new house, new beginnings, and a fresh chapter with my husband, Scott. We'd been married for 2 years when we bought the house, and though our marriage wasn't exactly perfect, I had hope. I thought with time, things would work out. They always said marriage was a work in progress. Scott worked in finance, a demanding job that took up most of his time. He was ambitious, always climbing the corporate ladder, always focused on the next promotion or deal. I admired that at first: his drive, his dedication. But as the years passed, I realized that same drive had left little room for anything else, especially me. We tried to make time for each other, but things never truly aligned. Every vacation was rescheduled, every dinner interrupted, and every conversation somehow shifted back to his work. I supported him as best I could. I understood that providing for us meant sacrifices, but slowly, I began to feel more like a roommate than a wife. I tried to bring it up several times, gently at first. "I miss us," I would say. Or, "Do you think we can go away for the weekend, just us?" But there was always a reason. Deadlines. Meetings. Tiredness. 5 years into our marriage, I looked at him one night while we were watching television in silence and wondered if he even saw me anymore. It wasn't that he was a bad man. Scott never raised his voice, never treated me cruelly. He just wasn't present. And I began to feel invisible. That's when I started noticing Mason. Mason lived next door, in a charming 2-story home with blue shutters and a porch full of plants. He was around our age, maybe a little younger. A carpenter by trade, he worked from home and always seemed to have projects going on: sanding, painting, building. There was something grounded about him, something comforting. While Scott was flying in and out of meetings, Mason was always around, smiling at the neighbors, helping Mrs. Gladstone carry her groceries, waving at the kids riding their bikes down the street. We'd exchanged polite greetings over the years, the occasional wave from the driveway or a quick chat while taking out the trash. But that changed one spring afternoon when our fence blew down during a particularly nasty storm. I was out there staring at the broken panels, unsure of what to do. Scott was in New York for a conference and hadn't even replied to my text about it. That's when Mason walked over, tool belt slung around his waist and a gentle smile on his face. "Need a hand?" he asked. I hesitated. "Only if you've got the time. I don't want to trouble you." He shrugged. "I was just wrapping up a project anyway. Besides, I could use the break." Before I knew it, he was pulling out a measuring tape and assessing the damage like it was second nature. Watching him work was mesmerizing. He moved with ease and purpose, his hands steady, his mind focused. There was a quiet confidence in the way he spoke, the way he explained what needed to be done without making me feel small or clueless. Over the next few days, we worked on the fence together. I brought him lemonade, held boards while he drilled, and laughed at his stories. He had a way of making the ordinary feel special, of turning a simple task into something almost enjoyable. And more than anything, he listened. When I talked, he truly listened. One afternoon, we sat on my back steps after finishing a long day of work. I was sweaty, tired, and oddly at peace. "You're really good at this," I told him. He smiled. "Thanks. I like working with my hands. Building things, fixing things." I looked down at my shoes. "I wish my husband could fix things. I don't mean fences. I mean us." Mason was quiet for a moment, respectful. "Marriage can be tough. I've never been married, but I've seen how it can wear people down when they stop showing up for each other." That struck a nerve. That's exactly what it felt like. Scott had stopped showing up. And here Mason was, doing what Scott hadn't done in years. Being there. I never intended to feel something for Mason. I didn't go looking for affection or attention. But something had been missing in me for so long, and Mason had filled that space without even trying. We began talking more. Not in a secretive or inappropriate way, just honest conversations. When I watered my plants, he'd call out a joke from his porch. When he was working on his truck, I'd bring over cookies. It was a natural rhythm that developed, something easy and real. One evening, Scott came home late again and found me reading on the porch. He looked around at the fence, now beautifully restored. "Did you hire someone?" he asked. I hesitated. "No. Mason helped me." He nodded slowly. "I should have done it." I didn't say anything. Because he should have. Not just the fence, but so many other things. He should have been there when the washing machine flooded. He should have joined me on that anniversary trip I planned. He should have noticed when I cried in bed facing the wall. But he didn't. What shocked me wasn't just the realization that I was deeply unhappy. It was that I had accepted it for so long. I had told myself for years that marriage was sacrifice. That it was okay to be lonely sometimes. That maybe it was just a phase. But being around Mason reminded me what it felt like to be seen. To be valued. Then one day, I got a call from my sister saying our mother had taken a fall and was in the hospital. I was frantic, trying to book a flight, calling the hospital for updates. Scott was unreachable. Out of service. Again. Mason found me sitting on my porch, phone shaking in my hands. "Everything okay?" he asked gently. I told him what happened, tears spilling. He didn't hesitate. "I'll drive you to the airport. Grab your bag." He didn't need to. But he did. That's who he was. On the way to the airport, I looked over at him as he drove, calm, steady, present. And I realized in that moment that he had done in months what Scott hadn't in 5 years. He had shown up. Consistently. Genuinely. Without asking for anything in return. When I returned from the hospital a week later, Scott barely looked up from his laptop. He asked how my mom was, gave me a distracted hug, and said he was swamped with work. That night, I lay in bed and whispered to myself, this isn't enough anymore. It wasn't about Mason. It wasn't about replacing one man with another. It was about recognizing my worth. Recognizing that I deserved to be prioritized, cherished, and heard. The next morning, I asked Scott to sit with me. I spoke calmly, clearly. Told him how I felt, what I'd been missing, and how long I'd been pretending that it was okay. He didn't argue. Maybe deep down, he knew it too. That we had been drifting for years and that we didn't have the strength or will to steer the ship back to shore. We separated 2 months later. It was civil, even friendly. We both knew it was the right choice. As for Mason, he never pushed, never overstepped. He was just there. A steady presence. Eventually, we did grow closer. We started taking long walks, cooking dinner together, laughing over things that didn't feel heavy. One night, while watching a movie with my head on his shoulder, he said, "You deserve to be happy. Really happy." And for the first time in years, I believed it.